Congress really didn't talk much about the dollar with Mr. Bernanke. They were more interested in, raging on about income inequality and things of that sort. Anything not to discuss the decent American economy and the booming stock market. Yep. But Brother Pinto is worried about the dollar. Are you worried about the dollar?
Well, I'm not worried about the dollar as such. I mean, it is at historic lows, but all that's telling you is the same thing that the high oil price and the high gold price and the high copper price are telling you. They're telling you that we have an incipient inflation problem, and that eventually that's what Bernanke is going to have to worry about. He's been given a kind of, I don't know, a great breathing spell here. We've come out of a deflation, so the published inflation statistics are lagging very much, some of these leading indicators like Forex. But eventually he's going to have to deal with it. You say the Fed funds rate's going to be stuck right where it is for your lifetime. Larry, I wish you a long lifetime, in which case you will see a higher Fed funds rate. Hey, guys, there's one really important thing that's being left out of this discussion. That is, like Milton Friedman said, inflation is everywhere and always a monetary phenomenon. It's not a tax phenomenon. It's not an import phenomenon. It's not a technology phenomenon. It's a money phenomenon. Good. And the way you look to see if you've got inflation is you look for the things that money exchanges with, like the money of other countries, like monetary metals like gold, like monetary commodities like oil, and they are all telling you that there is too much money. There's too much money. Otherwise, you'd see the gold price going down, you see the oil price going down, you see the dollar price going up, you see just the opposite of that. Yeah, inflation is monetary, and inflation is what we have.
Don Luskin, you're in the natural resources camp, aren't you? Isn't that still your play?
Yeah, it doesn't take a genius. It's just an inflation play. If you think, as I do, that inflation is a new long-term cyclical trend, you go for energy, you go for basic materials. It's just really simple. Just stick with the program.
Don Luskin, I'm going to come at you, buddy. I want to know,
go for it.
Why is it inflationary? Why not just growth, booming growth worldwide?
Well, how do you interpret the dollar on a trade-weighted basis being at all-time lows?
Well, that is an interesting point. Let's go there.
There's a differential. There's an interest rate differential going on, too.
Is it, Don, let me ask you as a supply sider, if Europe, East and Western Europe, is lowering tax rates, as they have been, and there's a big threat here in the U.S., because of the new Democratic Congress, and the Democrats are the favorites for next year's presidential, we will be raising taxes. Might this dollar slump versus the euro be a function of shifting taxes and shifting investment terms? In other words, a real terms of trade rather than an inflation play.
Right. I just don't see the world that way. I see currency relationships as simply being nothing but changing anticipated scarcities and abundances between the respective currencies. That just is a pure question of how many units of those currencies are their respective central banks printing. It has nothing to do with growth or productivity or tax rates or any of that other stuff. Call me simplistic, but I see it all just through that lens.
And including that is the trade deficit, too, and current account deficit.
Trade deficit.
I completely know that's
I love the trade deficit.
I love it. No, you don't.
For 30 years, practically since I was born in 1947, we've had a huge trade deficit signaling American prosperity.
It's getting a lot worse.
Oh, my God.
Don't you think we should be trading tangible goods for tangible goods? Do you think we should just be printing dollars
here's a great idea. Let's go back to barter.
Yeah.
How about I'll dig up a big rock and I can trade it for your coconut and just think we'll have a perfect balance of trade.
I think the trade deficit is predicted about 4 of the last $0 collapses.
Well,
the dollar is collapsing.
Every time.
And you don't think the trade deficit has anything to do with the dollar collapsing?
In the last 30 years, the only time we've had a balanced trade picture is when we've had a recession. You want a recession?
Sometimes recessions are good.
No,
yes, they do. They purge the excesses out in the economy. Absolutely do.
If you love recessions,
you know
what
why
do you
you haven't had a
recession?
Because
you think a little cancer
because
would
we've had a Fed that prints away, monetizes away recessions, and creates inflation.
That's very Hayekian. It's very Austrian. Very, very Austrian.
Well, thank you.
It's called root canal. All right. Don Luskin on the way out. When is the next Fed rate change?
I think it'll be in January of next year, and it'll be up a quarter of a percentage point, and the stock market will celebrate because it'll be in the context of surprisingly good growth.
Well, that's an interesting contrary view. Don Luskin, please weigh in on this. Don, You know, this story is so different from what we grew up with in the Vietnam 70s.
Right.
The stock market went down, down, down during that period. Economic policy was lousy. It seemed like America was, you know, losing ground all over globally, not just in Vietnam. Whereas during the Iraq period, we've done very well in the stock market. What are the differences, Don? How does an early Iraq pullout play into your thinking?
Well, as General Clark said, it depends how you do it. Pulling out does not mean defeat. We could pull out and declare victory. And it might look like victory for quite a while, maybe even forever. And if it looks like victory through the 2008 elections, we got a chance of getting a Republican in the White House, and that means we got a chance of continued good economic policy. I think that's what it's all about. It's a political issue. The American people have turned against this war. If the Republicans want the White House, they're going to have to figure out a way to declare victory and get out and just hope for the best.
All right.